area code 512 and in 759. Please press *6 to unmute and announce yourself to the court. Again, if you're here on phone number 512 ending 759, please unmute by pressing *6 on your keypad and announce yourself so we'll know which case you're here for. Good morning. Please tell me who you are. For phone 512 ending 759.
Blue.
If you're here for phone 512, area code 512, and the number in 759, you've unmuted. Please speak up so we know who you
are. Now talk. Hello?
Yes, hello. This is phone 512 ending 759. Please tell me who this is. This is Judge Holmes.
This is Steve Blue.
Good morning. Thank you for being with us. All right. And Mr. Swift, you're here as the plaintiff. So this is cause 24-000-334, Swift versus Blue. We have both parties present with us then. All right. Mr. Swift, tell me why you're seeking to evict the defendant.
This is a repair and remedy.
That's correct. Are you the landlord or the tenant?
Say again, ma'am?
Are you a landlord or the tenant?
I am the tenant, ma'am.
Okay, and you're seeking a repair or remedy?
Yes, ma'am.
I see. So this is all right. What type of repair are you seeking from the landlord?
What type of repairs?
Yeah, what is it you're wanting?
Well, what happened was he turned the electricity off on me, and the electricity is in a room where he can lock up, and I can't get in there. And I asked him several times to unlock it, and he wouldn't do it. And so I took the lock off and went in there and turned it on. But and I left the house, and when he came back, he had broken into my room, knocked on the door and wrote profanity and all kinds of stuff on the back of the door, and he stole stuff out of my room. But it all comes from, I paid all my rent. Didn't owe any rent. But this lady had moved in, and I didn't want to pay her rent. I said, I'm not paying her rent. He wanted me to pay her rent. And that's what he got mad and did that, turned my electricity off.
Has the electricity been restored?
Yes, ma'am.
All right.
I've lived with a guy 4 years, and we really haven't had any problems. It's just
all right.
It's a shame.
Mr. Swift, when I look at your original petition, you indicate that you gave him a notice to repair a situation on November 1st. And was that on November 1st, were you trying to have your power turned back on, or was there something else?
That's the day that he did. He turned it off in the morning and then turned it off back on late in the night after he had broken into my room and all that.
Okay. And so you're seeking as damages $625? And is that the amount of the rent?
Well, that's when it was just two people. But now he's saying it's 400 now, three people. She's not paying. I don't think she's not having any money.
In November, Mr. Swift, when you were there and he turned off your power, how much rent did you pay for November?
400, ma'am.
400. Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
So in November, when he disconnected the power, you paid $400 in rent.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And then you also put down that you want $300 as actual damages. What was the actual $300 damage that you encountered?
He stole some of my art.
Is that related to your electricity being turned off?
I guess. He broke down the door, and I submitted exhibits of the door that he broke into it.
Has he repaired the door?
No, that's why I want that repaired. And he's never had a lock. Those were my locks I put on there. And by law, you're supposed to have a deadbolt and a lock on it. And he's never had that.
Is there a deadbolt on the front door?
Yes.
Okay. All right. And then you're seeking attorney's fees. Did you hire a lawyer?
I just consider myself an attorney.
Unfortunately, that doesn't count for a Texas bar license.
Yes, ma'am.
I appreciate that. Okay. And then did you pay court costs, sir, or was that fee waived?
That was waived because I'm retired, ma'am.
All right. And then you're wanting a civil penalty plus $500.
Yes, ma'am.
All right. Now, sir, what day you said the power was disconnected on November 1st?
Yes, he turned it off.
All right. To your knowledge, were there any repairs being made to the property that day?
No.
Okay.
Oh, he'll admit he turned it off.
Well, I'm going to talk to him, but I'm asking you first because it's your lawsuit, Mr. Swift. There were
Yes,
no
ma'am.
repairs. Did the landlord give you notice the day before in October? In October that he was going to be disconnecting the power that day?
No. He did it because I didn't pay her rent. I paid it for, she was here before and stayed a month and a half, like 6 months ago, for free. And I paid that. I told him I'm not doing it this time.
Did you pay the rent on November 1st? Is that the agreement that y'all have?
Yes, ma'am. I think
Okay.
it's by the 3rd, but
Okay. Did you pay the rent of $400 on November 1st?
yes, ma'am. I probably paid it in October, like 31st or something. I get paid before the 1st usually.
All right. And to your knowledge, were there any emergencies that day that necessitated the power being disconnected?
Then he disconnected. He turned it off with a breaker box, locked in the room in the house, and locked it to where nobody could turn it back on. He did.
That's not my question, Mr. Swift. I understand how he disconnected it. I'm asking, to your knowledge, were there any emergencies that day that required the power to be shut off?
No, ma'am.
Okay, no emergencies.
No, Your Honor.
All right. Mr. Ballo, thank you for being with us. Can you hear me all right?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right. Mr. Swift has given me some testimony today. He says that he's been living there and that he had rent in November and that he paid his rent of $400 and that the same day the power was disconnected, but it was reconnected that evening. So let me just go one by one here. Did Mr. Swift pay rent in November of $400?
He only gave me $300.
And what day was that?
It was around November 1st. It
Explain why.
was actually November 3rd because it was real late. That was the last day to pay rent.
And how did he pay? Was it cash with the check, with Venmo? What was that?
It was cash.
Okay. Did you give him a receipt?
No.
I've never gotten any receipts.
Mr. Swift,
Yes,
please
ma'am.
be silent. Mr. Ballo was quiet
ma'am.
while you testified. You'll get a chance to respond, but just
Yes,
feel for
ma'am.
me
I
to be able to
apologize.
understand what's taking place. If I only have one person at a time, that's helpful.
Yes,
Okay.
ma'am.
Mr. Ballo, do you have a written lease with the plaintiff, Mr. Swift?
No, it's oral. He wanted to get on the lease, but he didn't want to pay the $300 deposit.
But
So
you
he
let him
never
in
did get on the
anyway.
lease. Huh?
Do you own the property?
No, I'm just a tenant.
Are you subletting a spot within your unit?
Am I what?
If you don't own the property, are you subleasing as part of your lease to Mr. Swift?
Yeah, he's supposed to pay $400 a month.
No,
But
I know that, but Mr. Ballo, let me ask you this. Do you have a lease to be in the unit where you're living?
Oh yes,
And
yes.
who is your lease with?
It's with Sea Choice Properties.
And does your lease allow you to sublet a room in that unit to Mr. Swift?
No, he's supposed to put down a $300 deposit to get on the lease, but he never did do it.
But you allow him to stay there
Yeah,
and you take his money.
I asked him. Yeah, I
Okay.
asked him to leave a few times too, and he wouldn't leave.
Well, that's okay.
Also, I
Okay.
didn't.
On November 1st, did you disconnect the electricity or otherwise disrupt the power flow into the property?
We had an oral agreement that I would pay the electricity and he would pay for the internet, and he turned the internet off on me at least a dozen times. That's why I don't have a computer. He only paid $300 that month in November for rent. So I decided to just turn the electricity off for a few hours, and he couldn't wait till I got back home to turn it back on. He broke the lock on my closet door to go in there and turn on the electricity. So he broke my doorknob and lock too. And he did it first.
Just so I'm clear, you absolutely just admitted that you turned off the power.
Yes.
Okay.
Only for a few hours. I
That's
was going to turn it back on because I need the power. He wasn't at home when I turned it off.
Sir, to turn off the power when he's there and then only turn it back on when you come home.
He wasn't here when
Did he
I
have
turned it
food in
off.
the fridge?
I have a fridge.
I know.
That's why I need the power on.
But you turned it off for a couple of hours. Did it impact your fridge too, or was it just on his side of the house?
No, it's my side. And he turned the internet off on me.
That's not a utility.
We had a deal.
Sir. That's not a utility.
It's not?
It's not, no. Per the law, utilities that are required to be provided are things like water, electricity, and potentially gas service. If gas is a requirement to heat and cool the property or to heat the property, right? Let me ask you this. Mr. Vallow, did you turn off the electricity because you were making a repair?
No.
Were you performing any type of construction on the property?
No.
Was there an emergency?
Yeah, I needed the money for rent that day.
Do you have an agreement in writing where you submeter the utility to him?
No.
All right, well, I'm just going to be very clear. The property code does not allow a landlord to disconnect the power for non-payment unless you give advanced written notice. Did you give written notice to Mr. Swift that you were going to disconnect his power on the 1st?
No.
Okay. I do find that you are liable under the property code for a disconnection of the utilities, sir, in violation of your obligations as someone who is acting as a landlord to Mr. Swift.
I'm not his landlord.
You are, because you're the person whose name is on the lease and you're subletting a room in your unit to Mr. Swift. But for you providing him access, he wouldn't be there.
Okay.
Right. If you had, I'm not going to give any legal advice. I have to say there's other ways to go about that. But what you've done is act as a landlord because you are collecting rent from him. And in your testimony, you said that he gave you $300. So if that's not a landlord, then I don't know what is, because he's there because you have a lease. And then under the lease, you came up with an amount of money that he owes you to be able to stay there. And you collected that money from him. And then you disconnected the power on him one day without written notice. And it wasn't because of a repair, construction, or emergency. And those are the only 3 acceptable alternatives for not giving advance notice.
He didn't pay rent.
In order to disconnect power for non-payment, you must give advance notice of that to the tenant. You can't just turn the power off.
Okay, I didn't know that.
Well, this is, unfortunately, ignorance of the law is not a defense. And Mr. Swift has met his burden of proof today. And the penalty for that then is the tenant's actual damages, 1 month of rent plus $1,000, any reasonable court cost or attorney's fees. And if he owes rent, we take that out. Does Mr. Swift currently owe you any amount of money for the rent?
Yes, he owes me 3 months rent.
For what months?
For December, January, and February. December, January, February, and now March.
And how much was the rent in December?
It was $400.
And how about in January?
$400.
And in February?
$400.
And in March?
$400.
All right. Mr. Swift?
Yes, ma'am.
Did you pay rent in December?
Yes, I did.
Do you have any proof of that?
He won't give me a receipt. He never will.
Did you get cash out of a bank account?
Yes.
Can you show me that you took out $400 on or about December 1st?
I had to go into my bank account.
Well, this is kind of an important part, right? He's saying that you didn't pay for December, January, February, March. So if you need to prove to me that you paid rent for those 4 months, how will you do that?
I just have to go to my statements and I could pull it up.
Do that right now. Look and see if you can find your bank statement.
Yes, ma'am. Let me do that right now.
All right, because
Just one
right
moment,
now
please.
you've established your case. But if you owe him rent, that would come out of the damages that you're winning. So I need you to be able to give me proof that you paid rent for December, January, February, and March.
Yes, ma'am.
And this is the problem with paying in cash. Even if he won't give you a receipt, you can make a contemporaneous recording of that, right? You could take a photo of the cash going. You could withdraw it the same day. And if you can show me that you withdrew $400 from your bank account on those occasions, I might see it's more likely than not to be true.
Yes, ma'am. Just a
All
moment.
right.
I'm
We'll
pulling
give
it
you
up
a
right
moment.
now.
I will say that when you find that, if you can, do you know how to screenshot or save it or download your bank statement and email that to the court? Because that's what I need. I don't want you to show it.
Yeah, I can do that.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
We're gonna put you on recall then. Mr. Balu, please don't disconnect, but you can put yourself back on mute. We're gonna give Mr. Swift a chance to try to send us proof that he made payment for those 4 months. Okay? We're gonna
Okay.
come right back to this case.
Yes, ma'am. It's not for the 4 months. I paid for November and then 2 weeks of December. And on the thing that he's saying about that,
Mr. Swift.
yes,
listen.
ma'am.
He said you didn't pay December, and you're now telling me you paid part of it.
I paid
Did you-
200.
Okay, let's see if we can get there a little faster. Did you pay anything for January?
No, ma'am.
Cool. You owe the money in January. Did you pay for February?
No, ma'am.
Okay. How about March? Have you paid anything for this month?
No, ma'am.
Okay. And you said you paid $200 in December?
Yes, ma'am.
And when was that?
On the first, probably, of that month. I'm always on time.
All right. He says the rent that you've been paying is $400. That's what you told me you paid in November. Is that correct? Was that what you were supposed to pay for January, February, and March?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So that's $1,200 that's outstanding and owed that we can all agree on. Cool. Let's just go with that number. So per the statute, you get your 1 month's rent, which is $400, plus $1,000 for him arbitrarily turning off the power without doing it. You didn't incur any attorney's fees or court cost. I don't see that you've established any amount of actual damages. And there's delinquent rent. So of the $1,400 that he would owe you, you owe him $1,400. So as a result, that means plaintiff is winning, but it's a take nothing case because your amount that you would have won is completely canceled out by the amount that you owe him. Okay?
No,
All right.
no, wait. No, that's not correct because I'm going to get my statement. I think I paid my January's. I think it was January that I paid half. I'd have to look again, ma'am.
I mean, Mr. Swift, you're welcome to take a moment here, but what you just told me was that you paid half of December.
Well, I don't recall. I think it was January. This is February.
This is March.
It's
Right
March.
now we're in March. Mr.
Yeah,
Swift, I'll give you a moment. And then take a look.
I did. I paid
Find proof of
200 in
that.
January. I paid all in December.
We'll put you on. Listen, I'm going to put you on recall, Mr. Swift. Go get your bank statements.
Yes,
You
ma'am.
can show me that you paid. It may be that you win a little bit of money today. You're winning, but the
Yes,
amount
ma'am.
you would have won right now is being negated by the amount you owe him. Okay? So we'll place you on recall. Take a look at your bank statement. See if you have proof that you paid any in December, January, February, or March. Those are the 4 months we're interested in.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. All right. We're going to keep it on recall. We'll come back to it. All right.
Thank you.
Then we're going to move along in the docket, our next case. And then that brings us back to the repair and remedy case. So just double checking me, Brochet. I think we went through the other portions of the docket and this is what we're with. Okay.
That's correct, Your Honor.
All right. Mr. Swift, were you able to locate any of your banking information about payments for December, January?
Yes, I sent in
or March?
December of 23 and January of 24 and February.
Okay. And did you email that information to us?
JP3, that court.
One just came through, Your Honor.
Fantastic. Just give us a moment, Mr. Swift. We'll let
Thank you.
Brochet put that in and then I'll take a look at it. We'll see what we get. Fantastic. All right. Oh, he just stood up.
I'm here. I just want to get
Okay,
tissue.
Mr. Swift, thank you. I did receive what looks to be Chase banking statements. Now, Mr. Bello, I'm gonna tell you that I'm not gonna share my screen because this literally has bank account information on it, and we are in a live public forum. And so but I promise you that I'm gonna take a look at these and I will share with you that which I can see on here, but I want to make sure that I am kind of redacting out that information, which would otherwise
Your Honor, I'm still working on redacting. So
Oh,
give me a
okay, fantastic. Well, I'll
second.
take a look at these as we're going through them here. Okay, but so this one is dated November 23rd through December 22nd, 2023. And it is an account number. It has Michael Joseph Swift, and there's an address there of Dan Jean Run, Unit A. And I'm just curious, Mr. Swift, is that the address where you're currently living?
Jean Drive.
Okay, all
Yeah.
right. And so we're looking for on or about the 1st of December. And I see a card purchases, but I see a money withdrawal of $150 on November 30th. And then a couple of purchases made. And then
What are you looking at,
$103.
ma'am?
I'm sorry?
What are you looking at?
I'm looking at the November to December. So it's November 23rd through December 22nd. And so the information I see on or about the 1st of December is $150 was withdrawn. That's just cash. And then nothing else occurs until there is well, you get $103 out on December 20th. And then there is something on the same day, a money spot, a real-time payment credit received. But that's actually you getting paid. So the two withdrawals for cash that I see, there's one on or about December 1st, and it's actually it's on November 30th, and that's $150. So let me make different note here. Okay. So I've got $150. Cash came out on November 30th. All right, now let me look at the next statement. Then I have a statement that's labeled January, and this one is dated December 23rd through January 24th of this year. So this is the next billing cycle, and it starts on December 26th. And so I see you making payments, money coming out, and then on or about January 1st, rather, I see on the 29th, you took out $900.
Yes, ma'am.
I see $200 come out, $202.50 came out, which I'm assuming is a fee they charge because
Yeah, that was personal
you can't
stuff.
take out typically 50 cents from an ATM. But that's on January 2nd. Was that for the rent, sir?
No, the other one was.
The $900?
Yeah. Like I said, just 200 was a personal getting money out of the
And
bank.
what was the $900 covering, sir?
Rent.
For
the whole
what?
month.
Your rent every month is only $400. So why did you get out 900? Were you only paying 4 or were you paying all 9? Did you give all $900 to the defendant?
No, I just gave the 400. Yeah. That was money for me.
Okay. And then in February is January 25th through February 23rd of this year. And on this one, on or about February 1st, I see a withdrawal on the third is that the same one? No. I see on January 31st, you took out $900. And what was that for, sir?
That was for rent. That's what we just went through, wasn't it?
No, that's the one you took out in December.
Okay, well, they were both. Was it around there right at the end of the month or after it? Usually it was for the end of the month.
Yeah,
at the end of the month.
So on January 31st, you withdrew $900. Did you give any of that money to the defendant?
Yes.
And how much did you give the defendant?
In January,
On January 31st, you
that would
withdrew
be for
$900.
February rent,
And
correct?
that's what I'm asking you. What,
Yes.
how much of that money did you give the defendant and when?
No, I paid 2 weeks of January. That's all. And then I haven't paid since.
Okay. You don't have good accurate records and your memory seems to be not great. So I'm going to ask you
No,
this
it's
again.
exactly what that says.
Let me get it clear. In November, you took out $150 on November 30th. Was that for rent? Yes or no?
Yes, for rent for December.
Okay, so you gave $150 towards your $400 December rent.
No. I paid all of it. You're not looking at there's more
I'm
there's
looking,
more there.
you, sir, Mr. Swift. Let me close and see if Miss Bright has redacted these entirely, and then I'll show you what I'm looking at, okay?
Yes, ma'am.
Because we're talking about 4 months of rent. She's got it redacted now. I'm going to share my screen and we're going to look at this together. And Mr. Ballo, you can look along potentially, although you're on the phone. Okay. So Mr. Swift, I'm going to show you the bank statement, your bank statement that you just sent me. Here is the bank statement for November through December. Okay. So this should cover December's rent. When I look to see in your statement down here what you did or did not pull out of money, I can see that you
On the
pulled
left,
out money right here on November 29th. You took out
right.
$900.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
On of that $900, did you pay rent toward December?
Yes. 400, all of it.
Okay. All right. Now,
Thank you.
did you pay? So you've paid all your rent for December. Did you pay rent for January?
Yes.
Yes,
I paid
okay.
200.
Now I'm going to show you your bank statement. Here is the bank statement for the period of December 23rd through January 24th. On this one, I can see that you again, on or about the end of the month, right here on December 29th,
Right.
you got $900.
Yes, ma'am.
But you're saying that of that one, only $200 you gave him toward the January rent.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. All right. And now we come to February rent. And you gave me a statement for February, your bank statement. And in February, I'm going to share my screen again.
I did not pay anything.
Okay. Now here, sir, I see January 31st, you took out $900, but of
Right.
that 900, you didn't give him any money for February rent.
No, no, I did not, because that's when
Okay.
he started evicting me, doing all this dumber things after breaking into my
Okay.
my room.
All right.
with stealing
All
things.
right. All right. You didn't give him anything for February.
No, ma'am.
Okay. Did you pay him anything for March, the month that we're currently in?
No, ma'am.
Okay. So per your testimony right now, you are still living
Yes, ma'am.
and you lived there in February
Yes, ma'am.
and you're living there right now. You've been there since March 1st
Yes, ma'am.
and you were there all the month of January.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. But you only gave him half the rent for January. So that's $200 that you owe him for January.
You're correct. You got
And you
got
owe him all $400
all-
for February and $400 for March. So that's $1,000 that is outstanding and owed to the defendant.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Mr. Balu, do you have
Yes,
any
Your Honor.
questions about the information I just recited or the testimony Mr. Swift just gave me?
It sounds pretty correct to me.
Okay. All right. Then, again, let's go through this. So the tenant did not recover. So it has been established per the information today and the testimony of both parties. And I appreciate both of you both being honest and candid. So thank you.
You're welcome.
Mr. Ballo, you did disconnect his power and you're not able to do that for non-payment of rent unless you follow specific protocols by giving him advance notice of it. Because that did not happen, the tenant, Mr. Swift, is entitled to recover certain things. One thing he can recover is actual damages. He did not have any actual damages. He is
He stole
entitled
my
to.
art that I made.
I don't, that's not a result of the power going off, Mr. Swift.
yes,
You might contact an attorney or decide to pursue him in a different way for that. But as a result of the power going off, you didn't have to rent an apartment. You didn't have to go buy a generator. Those kinds of actual damages that we take into account.
Okay.
You
Thank
get, for a
Well-
residential tenancy, 1 month of rent, which is $400, and a $1,000 penalty. Okay. So all total, Mr. Swift would be entitled to recover $1,400. However, the law says that if you owe any rent to the landlord, that amount gets deducted out of it. So the amount that I heard today that Mr. Swift said he owes, and Mr. Vallow, you just agreed to, is that he owes you $1,000, half the money for January, all of February, and all of March. So if I take out the $1,000 rent owed, then the judgment today for Mr. Swift is for $400. Okay, and that is the ruling of the court. Judgment for the plaintiff in the amount of $400.
Thank you, Your Honor.
All right. Good luck to both parties. Y'all can come to any resolution you like on that, but if neither party appeals, that becomes a final judgment for $400. Okay?
Thank you for your help.
Thank you both. Good luck to both of you. Thank you. Thank you.